some introductions here. I see some wonderful young people in front of me. I'm the only old hat I see.
Yeah. So,
Well, I must be somewhere in the middle.
You're not an old hat, that's for sure.
I'm sure I'm old enough to be their mom.
Uh, well,
Anyway, we do want to do introductions, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to meet with the students from the Harcum Vet Nursing Program today. We're doing this interview as part of our celebration of Black History Month. But we also just want to acknowledge that a lot of students are feeling very anxious these days about the state of our country. Harcum College has a long history of centering respect for diversity and assuring all of the members of our community that they are valued, supported, included, and equal. And that's what we strive to do for all of our students every day. Um, I'm going to ask each of you, Devin, you want to go first and just briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I do that. Good afternoon, Dr. Bailey. I'm Devin Allen. I'm a first year student at Harcum College. And my goal is obviously to like work with animals, but I do want to work at exotic animals and large animals. So that's like my end goal in this.
should send me some of the pictures I have from working on rhinos.
Yeah, like I like the type of exotics. Like I like the especially the safari, like the African animals, all that.
There's rhino rescue in South Africa, and they're always looking for volunteers to help them with the rhinos that are hurt or need to be dehorned so that the poachers have nothing to go after.
That's good.
Nice meeting you.
You as well.
Miracle?
yes. So my name is Miracle Clark Boyd. I'm a first year student at Harcum. I'm looking forward to going into cardiology, even though it's not one of our rounds at Penn, but the lady said she would make it happen for me.
That's definitely a needed area, so I don't think it would be very difficult to find people interested in developing your interest.
Thank
Hi, I'm Isaiah. I'm a first year student, and I want to work with large animals specifically because I grew up with horses, and I just admire the animals so much. So,
So I have a question for you. You say large animals, so is it equine or is it production animals or all?
mostly equine, but I'd be
Okay.
open to working with all.
Well, I'm just trying to, because you know, the American Association of Equine Practitioners. They're
Mhm.
always looking for people to nurture along. And then if you did want to do more mixed animal and whatnot, we have some other people like bovine practitioners and whatnot who would also love to nurture your interest. But AAEP is a wonderful group. You should contact them, let them know you're interested in you may find out you get sucked deeper into the horse world.
There are a bunch of veterinarians in PVMA who would like to meet you too, Isaiah. There's
That's right.
a shortage of veterinarians and veterinary technicians and nurses who are interested in large animals. So, yeah, you're going to be a popular guy.
Yep,
All right.
very much so.
So, all three of our students are members of our campus Skinavta group, and they volunteered to chair our Black History Month committee. And as part of that, they developed this set of questions that they feel address some of the key issues that Black and Brown people coming into veterinary medicine face at this time. Devin, do you want to take the first question?
Yes, I would like to. My first question is, what does it mean to you personally and professionally to be the first Black president of the AVMA? And can you share some of the challenges you have faced as a Black professional in veterinary medicine and also how you overcame them?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question and thank you for the invite. The question is one that covers over 164 years. Why do I say that? Because AVMA has been in existence for over 164 years, and I am the first person of African descent to be elected to be president. We did have a vice president, and that was Iverson Bell, I think back in 1970. But I'm the first person to be elevated to the president office of president-elect. What does it mean and how do I feel? Well, first of all, what it means is the fact my job is not so much to worry or dwell on being the first, it's to dwell on not being the last. And that's what I very much want it to be. I want everybody to see me and realize if this person can make it, anybody can make
Hmm.
it so
It
that
can
it
be done.
opens doors for everybody, whether you're a person, whether you're black, brown, uh, other races, and that includes white. I want it to be a diverse organization because diversity, people don't want to admit it, but organizations that are diverse are 30% more innovative, more productive than organizations that are not diverse. So those who are trying to shut it down are trying to shut down our innovation. If I answered the question, or have I gone around it? I don't always know.
No, you've answered it. I just also want to know, like, what are the challenges you have faced in your professional career?
Okay, challenges. First of all, let's start before I even got into college, where individuals didn't think I had the mental faculties, let's just say, to make it through a 4-year college, much less veterinary school. It turned out I was diagnosed as being dyslexic, and that diagnosis actually didn't come from my school, came from my aunt, who was a school teacher, who was watching me trying to read one day and turned around to my mother and said, "This boy is not handicapped. He's dyslexic." And she worked out with me some things I had to do, but basically she told me I just had to keep pushing through, ignore people who said, no, you can't do any more. They thought I'd be a good plumber. And to be honest, I probably would have been a good plumber and probably would have made a lot of money,
Hmm.
but that's not where I wanted to be.
Right.
Um, Going into college, mind you, I grew up in an area and I grew up in New Jersey, and a lot of people don't think of New Jersey as being a largely black populous area. Depends on what part. I grew up in Hopewell, which, for those of you who don't know what Hopewell is, that's where George Washington crossed the Delaware and landed. And by the way, that famous painting on the wall had black people, brown people, white people, and women in the boat. So he was diverse in his painting and also in his military. He had a short while where he tried shutting down black people, and he suddenly realized, no, those folks are pretty good fighters. We need to have them. So I grew up in an area which was not heavily populated in black, except for the area I grew up. You should look up the Sourland Mountains. New Jersey, by the way, was the last northern state in the country to abolish slavery, 1867. And all the slaves in New Jersey at that time, I shouldn't say all, but a large number of them moved into an area called the Sourland Mountains. The reason they moved to the Sourland Mountains was because the white folks did not want to live there because it was really rough soil. It's where the glacier dropped boulders and whatnot.
Right.
And therefore, there's a lot of granite. Literally, streets of Philadelphia and New York were paved with granite from the Sourland Mountains. And they managed to grow blueberries and strawberries and other fruits in this area, and they made a living out of it. But this was a black enclave. So I grew up knowing these individuals in this black enclave, even though it was a predominantly white area. And believe it or not, one of the challenges I have after getting out of high school, because once again, high school was trying to put me into a career path of a tradesperson. Tradespeople are great. So, but that's not where I wanted to go. Went to college, and then I went down to South to go to school. First time this folk from person from the North went to the South, and first thing I did when I crossed the border into Alabama was I pulled into an old gas station, and there was two water fountains, and it still had the signs that said white and colored on it. So I'm just saying, I went to school in an era where if you wanted to be terrified and you wanted to turn back, there were lots of warnings. Turn back, turn back, turn back.
Hmm.
And then some of our folk down in Alabama didn't see me as being black because I grew up in the North and tried to encourage me to leave school. So let's just say it came from both sides.
Hmm.
So I had learning handicaps. I grew up in an area that was predominantly white, so I wasn't seeing a whole lot of black professionals,
Hmm.
but I grew up in an area where I saw people who worked hard to accomplish and get what they wanted as far as black individuals. That was driving. Went to the South, and immediately I'm faced with remnants, mind you, remnants of the old South of Jim Crow. And then some of our brethren in the South decided I was too northern, so maybe I should go back to the North. So, what can I say? That's the start of a career.
Right.
Boy, that's a lot. Devin, did you have a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, my second question was, how can the AVMA ensure that DEI efforts are sustained beyond symbolic gestures? And can you assure that Dr. Craig will remain in her position as Chief DEI Officer?
Well, you're asking a hard question that has to be addressed every single day. So let me start off with an easy one. Dr. Craig is going to be there. She's going to be there to support us. And when I say us, I mean everybody on this call. I mean everybody in our profession. And
Right.
I mean everybody who our profession touches. And I
Hmm.
say it that way because I hope you realize that as being in the veterinary profession, you're part of a One Health network, which means that you touch animals, what humans do, what the earth does, so there's no limit to where we go. So Dr. Craig will be there. And we have had discussions just this week to make sure that we know how to go forward and making sure Dr. Craig doesn't have anything to worry about. She's going to be there. She shouldn't.
Right.
Now, AVMA carrying through its commitments. We are in a difficult time. We have some individuals who, I'm sorry, they want to take us back to the 1950s. Um, I'm not going back to the 1950s.
Yeah.
I mean, the cars were big and slow. It was, if you had a TV set, it was a black and white TV set. And the internet, who knew what the internet was then, right? So
Right.
yeah, we're just not going back to that. But AVMA has made a commitment, and we have received a lot of supports from our constituents saying we want more. Journey for Teams has very popular and is being called on even more now. The fact that AVMA needs to represent everything that we represent, AVMA is insistent upon that. And as long as I'm there, I'm going to be insisting on it even more. But I don't think we have to worry about the AVMA's backbone in standing up to this. What it comes down to, if you don't mind me just dropping a, a few corporate names right now, we're going to be Costco. We aren't going to be some of the other corporations out there.
I love
Yeah,
that answer. Thank you.
thank you. That's wonderful to hear. It really is. Isaiah, do you have a question?
Do. As you've seen in the veterinary community become more diverse over the years, what are some of the positives you've seen, and what do you think are the major challenges?
The positives are, as you've already heard me say, is diversity in itself is vital for innovation. So I do see the veterinary community becoming more innovative, becoming more, and I'm going to say progressive. I'm not saying that as a political term. I'm saying that as the veterinary community is out there looking at what we need to do to move forward. When I was just graduating from veterinary school, well, first of all, let me say, if you talked about AI, you were talking about artificial insemination, and nobody questioned that. And the thought of artificial intelligence, the other AI, was a TV show with Robbie the robot. So totally folk. fake person inside of a robot suit making these actions, and that was artificial intelligence. You say, oh, they had it down at Disney World. Yeah, they had animatronics, and it was mechanical machine learning. It just repeated itself in a mechanical algorithm each time. Now we have AI where you don't know sometime that you're interacting with AI. So I'm just using that as one example where we've gone from the fantasy of something to the reality of something. And we could say that's in 40 years, but the actual delivery of what we see as being AI has actually happened in the last 5 to 10 years. There are going to be things in the next 5 to 10 years that we think are fantasy today, but are going to become actuality later on. But what else is going to happen? I think more and more people are going to realize that this diversity that we're talking about is very, very important for us to progress. Do you know that the person who um, actually found out that viruses, if you had two viruses, separate viruses, infect a bacteria, how they could recombinate into a new genome was a black person from Michigan.
Was it?
The person who invented or came up with the method that's used today for treating cataracts was a black physician, a woman who studied in New York in Harlem. And if we do not have these diverse individuals, there's a lot of inventions that may never have happened. So, does everybody know where the term the real McCoy came from?
I don't.
No,
No, no. Have you ever
No.
heard the term the real McCoy?
no.
Well, one person here, at least myself, it used to be, and it still is, if you see something and you want to be sure that it's real, you said, I want the real McCoy. That came from the railroad era. And it used to be that trains, those big diesel steam locomotives, you had to
Hmm.
stop every 10 to 20 miles and lubricate the bearings. Otherwise, you'd burn up the bearings. Well, it was a black man, I believe he was out of Cleveland, but don't hold me to that, who came up with an automatic oiler. So it would automatically oil the bearings so you could go 50, 100 miles and then just fill up the reservoir and keep going. Well, there were people who wanted to copy his design. So they copied his design, but they didn't work as well. And therefore people would break down. So people would come in and say, I want an automatic oiler on this engine, and I want the real McCoy. And McCoy was a black man.
That's great.
That is good. Very interesting.
So what else
Miracle,
we got?
Miracle, you're up. Let's talk about vet nursing.
Yeah. What actions can the AVMA take to support veterinary technicians and nurses, such as networking and mentorship programs aiming to increase retention in the profession?
Okay, great question. Very important question. In this day and age, we have a workforce shortage. I'm putting it
Yes.
workforce shortage because that includes veterinarians, it includes veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses, um, as well as veterinary technician specialists. What AVMA has been doing actually for, boy, well over 5 years. In fact, it went on before that, but the National Association of Veterinary Technicians was having some problems, and the AVMA started supporting them to make sure that they could get over that hump, which they have done a pretty good job of. AVMA has made a commitment. We are there for veterinary technicians. We are trying to make sure that our colleagues understand that part of the reason why veterinary technicians have a relatively short work lifespan is because the fact we're not using you folks to the fullest advantage. We're not, we insist that we have to do that ECG. We have to do that ultrasound. We have to do that phlebotomy instead of the veterinarian going on and doing something else that they are highly trained to do and letting the well-trained veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses uh, perform this job. and allowing nurses and technicians, veterinary nurses and technicians, grow into the job. So if there's a skill where you want to be able to do, we should allow you to develop that skill and be able to do it. So the veterinarian can continue doing this while the veterinary nurse and technician are always supporting what we do. And AVMA recognizes that the veterinary team is the way that we are going to address the workforce challenge. We have to do a team, and you can do more work as a team than the same number of people as individuals. Want to follow up or anything there? Does I leave something out for you?
No, you answered my question.
Don't be hesitant. If you want more, I'll be glad to give you more.
Um, no, I think you answered the question correct.
Okay. What else could I ask you?
I'm gonna throw in a little something. It seems
Uh-oh, here comes the big
here she
cheese.
comes. Um, no, from my point of view, I think we are at a critical point in history where veterinarians and veterinary technicians, at least from the data that I have seen, have an opportunity to really come together and support each other rather than go to a mid-level practitioner and try to open a whole other can of worms. And so I think myself, as someone who's been educating vet techs and vet nurses for 25 years, I'm hoping that the AVMA is really going to kind of stand up and even more than you have, look at utilization, look at scope of practice. Where are the places that we can expand scope of practice while still, honoring the veterinary patient client relationship?
Very good point. Here's one of the, I'm going to say, problems that we have, and this problem isn't necessarily going to be addressed by the AVMA. It has to be addressed by the populace. There are some states who do not even have regulations for credentialing of veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses. We need to have all areas have credentialing processes. We need to have those credentialing so that people can have license portability. So, I mean, I live in Pennsylvania, and you have portions of Pennsylvania that touch Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. So a person could live in one state, but right now they can't take their license into another state just to transport, and it could be a matter of a mile in between work and home. So we need to have that. And one of the things I tell people is I truly believe in the veterinary team in that my wife is a registered nurse and a pediatric nurse practitioner. And I have seen in human medicine how the medical team works together to support themselves. And if those guys can do it and they're only dealing with one species, I think we can do it too. So AVMA is there. AVMA is the mid-level practitioner. It's a distraction. It's really what it comes down to. There is no way that a mid-level practitioner can be trained up even to do what veterinary technicians, veterinary nurses do today. Why? Because there is no program for them yet. There is no credentialing program to them. And they talk about wanting to make it so that they can do routine surgery. Well, I want to know which one of you wants routine brain surgery. So I think there's a lot of concerns. But even beyond that, why are we trying to make a whole new program when we have such a wonderful program uh, with veterinary technicians and veterinary nurses? Why aren't we doing everything we can and investing the money that we're using to fight this ill thought out um, new aberrant profession and put that into programs for veterinary technicians and veterinary nurses? Why are we not doing everything to elevate you as much as possible? It's going to be better for the profession, but what's more important, it's going to be better for those who serve. And while I'm talking about that, those who serve, we always talk about veterinary practice, but most people think of that as being private practice, dealing with dogs, dealing with cats, dealing with horses, dealing with cows, which is absolutely true. That is 70% of what our members do, but there's also public practice. We need veterinary technicians and veterinary nurses in the public areas, and I'm going to start in the military. Y-
Yeah, that's what I wanted
Veterinarians,
to do.
good. Well, veterinary nurses, veterinarians are vital for the military. My son is on active duty right now, and he talks about working with um, MDs, which is great, but MDs for the most part make sure that when a soldier is hurt, they are able to recuperate as quickly and as whole as possible. Veterinarians and veterinary technicians make sure that the entire armed forces is ready to deploy. We make sure that they are healthy so that they can deploy. We try to make sure that those areas that they go into are better off uh, after we arrive than they are before we arrive. So the veterinary profession in the military is vital. But then we talk about the public health service. It's veterinarians and veterinary technicians who are involved with the public health service, tracking down those diseases, whether new diseases or old diseases, trying to prevent them from getting a foothold in the population. So I just want to be sure everybody knows private practice is vital, 70% of what we do. But don't forget the importance of public practice also.
Thank you. I think Isaiah's up. Are you up, Isaiah? We're coming down to the end of our question list here. Go ahead, Isaiah. You're on
You're on
mute.
mute.
All
Say
right.
it again. I'm sure it was fantastic.
Cultural awareness allows us as veterinary professionals to do better with communication with clients and care for our patients. Um, how can we more actively include cultural awareness in our curriculum for vet and vet nursing students?
Well, actually, that's a large part of Journey for Teams. So I would recommend if you haven't looked through and participated in the programs, very concise, they're 15-minute programs in Journey for Teams. It talks about cultural awareness, it talks about how you would communicate with other individuals. So we basically need to let people know, first of all, if you come from this area and you're trying to communicate with people over in this area, and I can tell you, I too have to be made aware of this. I am going to be visiting an Apache high school here in April, and I'm trying to make sure I'm culturally aware so that I do not have any FUBAs. I want to be welcome there. I don't want to be a nuisance there. So I'm telling you, this is for everybody. It's not saying that because you're a European American, you don't know how to talk to an African American, which may or may not be true. It could be that an African American does not know how to talk with a Native American also. So you have to make an effort so that you are welcoming. You want to be sure that people welcome you and they want to be able to know that you are sincere. And yeah, we can make mistakes, but honest mistakes and educate me. But I'd say the first start is go to Journey for Teams, and I think there's going to be a lot of information there to help you. Okay.
I actually introduce Journey for Teams in their fourth semester, and they're in their second semester, so
Okay.
they haven't
Good.
heard of it yet, but they
Something
will.
to look forward to then. But also let me tell you, you have to take a fair amount on yourself too. What am I talking about? Here I'm having a conversation with you, but here you are looking at an individual who's a severe introvert. I'm a person that after I go out there, and mind you, I've gone all over the world now. And I go back to my room at night and I sit there and I melt. And when I first realized that I was an introvert, this was something that had to do with me. It didn't have to do with my growing up. Excuse me for a second. I decided I needed to not so much cure myself, but control this desire to hide away. I preferred to spend all my time with my pets and not with people. But unfortunately, you have to work with people, or fortunately. So what did I do? I started taking singing classes in high school, and I started singing in musicals and opera. Now, no, I was not the lead in any of these, but I was out there in the chorus. So what did it do? Placed me up on a stage, and in one instance, there was over 2,000 people out there in the audience. And I might have been just one of many, but yet people were staring at me. Why? Because I'm trying to make it so that I realize there's nothing out there that's going to hurt me. I need to do this. I need to press the envelope. Didn't matter who's out there, a nice, diverse audience. I need to be sure that I know that I can present myself to them. So what am I
Mhm.
saying is you have to take the responsibility on yourself. If something I like to tell people, and I can't remember who said this, I did not invent this, but if you want to be involved in a conversation and you go to a table and there's not a chair at the table, bring your chair with you. Bring a folding chair and sit down. If there's no room at the table, set up your own table. So you have to take the responsibility also, and that's how you're going to be included.
Miracle, did you have another question?
Yes. So in another interview you stated that your focus on your presidency would be the rising cost of education. What are some of the strategies that you are considering to address this issue?
I'm sighing because this topic has become more and more difficult over the months, not the
Mhm.
years, the months. We had an administration who was dedicated to trying to do everything possible to tamp down the cost of education. And I'm not sure. I think we've taken back steps there. One of the things that can be done, no matter who the administration is when you're going to school, you need to have financial planning. And I'm not saying you need to go somebody with a suit and go and say, okay, here's the numbers. And you need to at least have, if I have this much money, I need to budget it so I do not go over a budget. When borrowing money, you have to realize you borrow money, you're going to have to pay it back. And do you know that if you take out a student loan, that there's an origination fee? I would love to see that origination fee removed for educational purposes, but that origination fee pays the banks for basically doing everything that you're doing now. It used to be when I was your age, I had to sit down with pen and pencil and somebody had to sit there. Now you are typing all this stuff into a computer and the bank just looks at it and said, "Oh, you need to go back and fill this in." So in other words, the bank does nothing, but they're still charging you a fee for processing your application. I think that should be eliminated. We need to try and convince our politicians that the value of education is the value of developing this country of ours. But that's the hard part. Our politicians are not listening to us today. So we have to take it on ourselves to make sure that we try and have the smallest debt possible. And there was a survey out, when was that? About 5 years ago, that said that students that went to Tuskegee had the highest student debt load of any veterinary school in the country. However, when you went back and looked at that, and that made it look bad for Tuskegee. I mean, Tuskegee is so expensive to go to and whatnot. Went back and looked at that. No, a good portion of that student debt came from undergrad. So not veterinary school, it was undergrad. So it's a matter, and it's well known people of color, particularly African Americans, have an extremely high debt load from their undergraduate education, not so much from their professional education. So you need to start working on it while you're in high school and when you're in college before you get to professional school. Try how can that debt be reduced at that particular time. And I know how much I worked, but once again, when I went to school, I could pay my annual tuition mostly from my summer jobs and whatnot, definitely my books. Now you can't do that. So I wish I had an easy answer now because it's a moving target. And they keep on. Every time I think we see progress, somebody moves it again.
Mhm.
So that's not a very satisfying answer, but I'm trying to be truthful.
At least you're truthful.
Anything else?
I think
Yeah,
Devin had our last question,
yeah. I just
right?
got one final question. Um, so what legacy do you hope to leave as a president of the AVMA, and what message do you have for young Black people coming into the profession now?
The veterinary profession is the most advanced profession, I'm going to say, in the world. You might think a rocket scientist is, but no, rocket scientist deals with propulsion. We deal with all the different species and whatnot. If you want to be on the cutting edge, whatever that may be, and you can make it whatever you want it to be, veterinary medicine is where you want to be. I just received, when I say just, it was January 5th of this year, my second patent for artificial intelligence. I'm a radiologist, I'm a veterinarian, I'm a radiologist, and I've managed to get patents. You can do it in this profession. And if what you want to do is spend your time, important time, making pets have a better life with their families, that is an extremely important part, very satisfying part. And people of color, because I don't want to leave out other people of color, but definitely
Right.
those of us of African descent, we have so much to offer. One of the things we have, this is said to be the most white profession in America, but veterinary medicine actually goes back thousands of years with people of color. Mesopotamia, Ethiopia, Egypt. Egypt, people talk about, yeah, they mummified animals to sack. No, Egyptians had animals as pets, and they mummified them because they wanted to take their pets with them.
Hmm.
There were prescriptions, there were herb gardens made in Mesopotamia. There were herb gardens for people and herb gardens for animals. Why? Because the king saw it essential to keep the animals and the people that were living together healthy. And about 200 BC, there's actually this statue in the middle of this one town, which they have a in one of the museums that actually said what the cost of veterinary care was for your animal. And also, if that animal died under the care of the veterinarian, it said what it was going to cost for it. So not only did it define what veterinary cost was going to be, and this is 200 BC, it defined what malpractice was going to be back then also. And this is in Northern Africa. So what I'm saying is we may have a small representation in America today, but there's a long, long history of people of color, of African descent, of Asian descent being involved in veterinary medicine. And the reason why you don't hear more about it is because there was an area where individuals worked very hard to wipe out that information. They didn't do a very good job because I found it. So just remember, you are part, everybody is a part of a long history of veterinary medicine. And we need to work to make sure that we continue to be a strong part of what it means.
I just have to say, I am super proud of these three people. And I have known them for 2 semesters now. I know their possibilities, and where they can go in this profession are limitless. And I am so grateful to you for being with us today and sharing your insight. And I know they're going to look back, and meeting you is going to be an important moment that they're going to remember. So thank you so much, Dr. Bailey. I don't know if you have any questions for us before we go, but we really appreciate your insight and your time, and all that you are doing and will do in the future for
Well,
VetMed.
I hope I don't disappoint anybody in this interview or in what doing. I unfortunately don't have a lot of time because guess what? After this interview, I have an interview with a major network.
Mm.
Well, again, thank you for your
No, we appreciate everything
time for us.
for
We're going
sure.
to be looking for you.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what network to put on?
Not at this moment.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll just wait and be surprised. Thank you so much, and have a great day. And happy Black History Month.
You too. Take care. Thank you very much for giving me some
Thank
time to
you.
talk with you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take
Have a
care.
Bye-bye.
good rest of your day.
Bye.